Where legends breathe again. Eldmyth. Before the first sunrise, before God's carved order from chaos, there was Apophis, a serpent vast enough to swallow the sun, feared even by Ra himself. Not a demon, not a god, but the ancient force that every dawn had to overcome just to let the world exist. For millennia, under the immense velvet cloak of the desert night, the ancient Egyptians looked up. They did not see random points of light, but a celestial drama written in fire, a story of constant cosmic war. The Milky Way was not just a galaxy. It was the heavenly Nile, a mirror of the life-giving waters below. And sailing upon this river of light was the sun god Ra in his majestic solar bark, bringing light, order, and life to the world. But every light casts a shadow, and for Ra that shadow had a name, Apophis. This was not a mere monster of fable. It was the embodiment of primordial chaos, the great serpent of destruction that lived in the absolute blackness beyond the created world. Its sole purpose was to devour the sun, to plunge the universe back into the formless, silent void that existed before time began. Who, or what, was this eternal enemy of creation? How did a civilization build its entire understanding of cosmic order around a battle against a creature of absolute darkness? Tonight, we journey into the heart of Egyptian myth, to unravel the mystery of the serpent who sought to swallow the sun, and to understand why, every single night, the world needed to be saved anew. The concept of Apophis, or Apep as he was also known, was born from the fundamental Egyptian principle of Ma'at, the cosmic order of truth, justice, and harmony. Ma'at was the delicate balance that held the universe together, but Isfet, its opposite, chaos, lies, and disorder, was an ever-present threat. Apophis was the ultimate manifestation of Isfet. He existed outside the divine hierarchy. He was not a god to be worshipped, but a force to be vanquished. He had no temples, no priests in his honor. Instead, his presence was felt in the terrifying moments of cosmic instability, a solar eclipse when the sun's light was momentarily stolen, a violent, unexpected storm that ravaged the Nile Valley, or the long, uncertain hours of night itself. The earliest mentions of this chaos serpent are woven into the pyramid texts, the oldest known religious texts in the world, where spells and incantations were carved into the very walls of royal tombs to protect the pharaoh's soul and ensure his safe passage alongside Ra, directly referencing the giant serpent who leads the rebels. He was the enemy of light, of life, of creation itself. To the Egyptian mind, Apophis was a tangible physical entity, a serpent of unimaginable scale. He was often described as being over 16 yards long, with a body made not of flesh and blood, but of raw, corrosive chaos. His head was made of flint, the hardest stone known to them, symbolizing his unyielding, destructive nature. He was said to dwell in the dark, watery abyss of Nun, the primordial ocean that existed before creation, and in the deepest places of the underworld, specifically along the route that Ra's solar bark traveled each night. His symbolic meaning was multifaceted. He represented the constant threat of regression, the ever-looming possibility that society, the kingdom, and the very cosmos could collapse back into disorder. He was the enemy of Pharaoh, who was the living embodiment of Ma'at on earth. Thus, every victory over Apophis in the celestial realm was a reaffirmation of the pharaoh's rightful rule and the stability of the Egyptian state. Since one did not worship chaos, one fought it. The ancient Egyptians developed elaborate and daily rituals designed to aid Ra in his nocturnal battle and ensure the sun's rebirth at dawn. These were known as the banishing of Apep. In temples across Egypt, priests would create wax models or papyrus drawings of the serpent, often spitting upon them, trampling them with their left foot, and then ritually destroying them, burning them with fire, stabbing them with obsidian knives, and finally tossing the remains into the fire. These actions were not merely symbolic. They were a form of sympathetic magic, believed to have a direct, empowering effect on the gods fighting the real Apophis in the duet. Incantations from the Book of Overthrowing Apep were recited, a powerful litany of curses. Spit upon Apep, Apep falls, Ra lives, Apep is slain. The atmosphere was one of focused, sacred violence, a communal effort to maintain the fabric of reality itself. The most profound encounter with Apophis was not a singular event, but an eternal recurring battle that unfolded every night. As Ra's solar bark, filled with the souls of the blessed dead and a crew of powerful deities, entered the 12 gates of the underworld, the Jewett Apophis was waiting. The journey was a perilous one, through regions of fire, darkness, and monstrous beings. But the serpent's attack was the ultimate test. The texts describe him rising from the murky waters of the underworld Nile, a leviathan of pure malice, his coils threatening to capsize the bark of the sun. The very sight of him caused chaos. The serpent's roar, a sound from before time, could disorient the gods and make the boat shudder to a halt. In this moment, the universe hung in the balance. The failure of this nightly voyage meant an eternal night, the end of days, the victory of nothingness over everything. The defense of the solar bark was a coordinated effort of the most powerful gods in the Egyptian pantheon. The first line of defense was often Set, the god of storms, chaos, and violence. In a fascinating paradox, Set's chaotic nature made him the perfect weapon against the ultimate chaos of Apophis. He would stand at the prow of the bark, brandishing a great spear of iron, and engage the serpent in ferocious combat. Meanwhile, the wise magician Isis would recite spells of such immense power that they could bind the serpent, freezing him in place. The cat goddess Bastet, with her knife-sharp claws, would slash at Apophis's scales, while the scorpion goddess Serpent threatened him with her potent venom. But one of the most potent weapons was Mad herself, the goddess of order. She, or sometimes the god Seth, would use a net to ensnare the great serpent, a powerful metaphor for trapping and containing chaos within the bounds of cosmic law. The battle was never a clean, final victory. Apophis was a force of nature, an eternal principle. He could not be permanently destroyed. Each night, the gods would subdue him, wound him, and cause him to retreat. In some versions of the myth, he was cut into pieces, but his chaotic nature was such that he would always reform in the darkness, ready to attack again the following night. This cyclical struggle was central to the Egyptian worldview. It explained why the sun set and rose, and it emphasized that order was not a default state, but a precious achievement that required constant vigilance, effort, and divine intervention. The dawn was not a given. It was a hard-won miracle, a collective sigh of relief from the entire cosmos as Ra emerged victorious once more, his light breaking over the eastern horizon. Beyond the grand cosmic narrative, Apophis infiltrated the Egyptian understanding of daily life and the afterlife. For the common person, the serpent represented personal misfortunes, illness, and bad luck, all manifestations of Isfet intruding upon their lives. But his role was most terrifying in the journey of the soul after death. Just as Ra traveled through the Jewett, so too did the soul of the deceased, guided by spells from the Book of the Dead. These texts provided the soul with the necessary knowledge and passwords to pass by the various dangers of the underworld, and Apophis was the greatest danger of all. The deceased would have to declare their innocence and purity, aligning themselves with Mad, to safely pass the serpent's domain. To fail was to face a second death, complete and utter annihilation, being consumed by chaos, a fate far worse than any earthly end. The mythology of Apophis was not static. It evolved over the centuries, reflecting changes in political power and theological focus. During the reign of Akhenaten, who promoted the worship of the Aten, the sun disk, to the exclusion of other gods, the traditional myth was suppressed. Yet, the concept of an enemy of the sun persisted. In the later periods of Egyptian history, particularly under Greek and Roman rule, Apophis began to be syncretized with other monstrous serpents of Mediterranean myth. He was sometimes equated with the Greek Typhon, a monstrous storm giant, or with the serpent Ladon, who guarded the golden apples of the Hesperides. This blending of myths shows the enduring power of his image as the ultimate adversary of the celestial order. The legend of the great serpent did not die with the last pharaoh. It slithered through the ages, finding new life in modern culture. Apophis became a template for the ultimate evil in fantasy literature and film, an archetype of the world-ending threat. Most notably, when a potentially hazardous near-Earth asteroid was discovered in 2004, it was named 99942 Apophis, a fitting title for a celestial object that, for a time, posed a real, scientific threat of global disruption, a modern echo of the ancient chaos serpent threatening to strike the Earth. In video games, television series, and contemporary literature, the name Apophis is invoked for villains and monsters of immense power, forever linking them to that primordial struggle between light and dark, order and chaos. So what is the enduring legacy of Apophis? He is more than a myth. He is a profound psychological and philosophical construct. The ancient Egyptians, through the story of the eternal serpent, gave a name and a face to their deepest fears: the fear of darkness, the fear of the unknown, and the terrifying possibility that everything they had built, their civilization, their culture, their very understanding of the world, could be undone. But the myth is not a story of despair. It is a story of resilience. It teaches that chaos is a perpetual, inescapable part of existence, but that it can be and must be confronted. Every sunrise was a testament to their faith and their collective will to uphold order. The battle was never won, but it was also never lost. In our modern world, we may no longer fear a literal serpent in the sky, but we grapple with our own forms of Apophis: the chaos of climate change, the disorder of political strife, the personal darkness of despair and uncertainty. The ancient myth endures because it speaks a fundamental truth, that the light is precious precisely because the darkness is real. The journey of the sun bark continues, not in the duet but in the human spirit. Every time we choose order over chaos, hope over despair, and creation over destruction, we reenact the oldest story ever told. We become part of the crew, standing with Ra against the great serpent, and we ensure that the dawn will always come again. Another legend fades, but the next awaits. Like this video, subscribe and continue the journey through myths.